Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a really fascinating resource from the program on negotiation at Harvard Law School. Today, we're breaking down exactly how to choose the ideal mediation. We'll be exploring 7 totally distinct models and comparing facilitative versus evaluative methods using some really simple, practical examples. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly which tool to reach for. Picture this. You are right in the thick of a serious conflict. Maybe it's a messy business dispute, a real estate headache, or a really complicated contractual disagreement. So what's your move? Are you going to gear up for a highly stressful, drawn-out, and incredibly expensive court battle? Or are you going to look for a peaceful, amicable agreement? It's a pretty stark choice, right? Putting yourself in those shoes really highlights why finding the right alternative to the courtroom is just absolutely crucial. So here's our roadmap for today. We've got 6 sections. First, the labyrinth of conflict. Second, facilitative versus evaluative. Third, transformative and court-mandated mediation. Fourth, the hybrid models. Fifth, the root of e-mediation. And finally, number 6, how to choose the ideal model. Let's dive in. Section 1, the labyrinth of conflict, and how we can avoid the courtroom altogether. You know, the traditional legal system is basically a giant maze where costs just skyrocket and the stress takes a massive toll on everyone involved. When people want an exit strategy, they naturally turn to mediation. It's efficient, it's relatively low cost, and a trained professional steps in to help you find common ground, usually by focusing on mutual gains. But here is the catch, and a lot of people get this wrong. Mediation is not just one standard cookie-cutter process. It is absolutely not one-size-fits-all. And that leads us straight into the 7 distinct styles of mediation we're covering today. Section 2, facilitative versus evaluative mediation. This is the core divergence in the mediation world. Okay, if you only remember one single thing from our time today, let it be this big split. On the facilitative side, the mediator actively hides their own opinions. Instead, they encourage a totally voluntary solution by exploring your deeper, underlying interests. Think of 2 business partners arguing over company's direction. A facilitative mediator helps them find a shared vision. But then, on the evaluative side, it is a complete contrast. Here, the mediator actually steps in to give recommendations and assesses the legal merits of your case. So the key takeaway here is that evaluative mediators act a whole lot more like legal advisors or even judges. Because they're making fairness determinations and basically grading your legal homework, these mediators are almost always practicing attorneys who are experts in that specific area of law. A great practical example: imagine a really complex breach of contract dispute between 2 giant corporations. The evaluative mediator is going to point out the legal weak spots in each side's case to push them toward a settlement that looks a lot like what a real judge would rule. Section 3, transformative and court-mandated mediation. We are looking at empowerment versus mandates here. Let's talk about transformative mediation first. Introduced way back in 1994 by Robert A. Baruch Bush and Joseph P. Folger, this model takes facilitative mediation and pushes it a massive step further. It is honestly the most ambitious model because it doesn't just want you to settle a dispute. It literally aims to empower the disputants and transform their entire relationship. The whole focus is on helping the parties build the skills they need to recognize each other's needs and create constructive, long-lasting change. On the total flip side of that voluntary, feel-good empowerment is court-mandated mediation. Now, we usually think of mediation as voluntary, right? But courts will often force it to speed things up and save money. Here's the thing, though. Even when a judge orders you to sit at that table, success depends entirely on your mindset. If people are reluctant and just going through the motions to keep the judge happy, the odds of actually settling are incredibly low. But if they lean in and see the benefits, settlement rates just shoot right up. Section 4, the hybrid models. Let's explore Med-Arb and Arb-Med. So what happens if you absolutely need a guaranteed resolution? Let's break down Med-Arb first. It's a super logical, step-by-step progression. Step 1, you agree in writing that the final outcome is going to be binding no matter what. Step 2, you try standard mediation. But here is the brilliant safety net in Step 3. If you hit a total roadblock and mediation fails, you don't just go home. You seamlessly transition into arbitration. The mediator, or sometimes a separate arbitrator, takes over, looks at the facts, and makes a binding decision for you. You are guaranteed to walk away with an answer. Now, this comparison perfectly highlights the difference between Med-Arb and its really clever cousin, Arb-Med. In Med-Arb, that binding decision is made at the very end. only if mediation fails. But in ARB-Med, it's wild. The arbitrator hears the evidence first, writes out a binding award, and then physically seals it in an envelope so nobody can see it. Only then do you attempt to mediate. If mediation fails, they just tear open that sealed envelope, and whatever was written inside becomes binding. You might be wondering, why on earth do it backward like that? Well, Richard Fullerton hits the nail on the head with this quote. When the award is written and sealed before mediation even starts, the mediator can't use any of your confidential, vulnerable secrets to secretly alter their final judgment later on. It completely removes the fear of misusing confidential info. Plus, having that sealed envelope just sitting there on the table, that keeps immense psychological pressure on everyone to just figure it out themselves. It's honestly brilliant. Section 5. The route of e-mediation, all about technology-enhanced conflict resolution. So, what if the parties involved are thousands of miles apart? Or honestly, what if the conflict is so toxic they just can't stand to breathe the same air in a conference room? Enter e-mediation. It takes the traditional facilitative approach and just leverages everyday tech like Skype or Google Hangouts. You still get to read visual and vocal cues, but you completely remove the threat and tension of physical proximity. Now, you might think staring at a screen kills the human connection, right? Actually, research says otherwise. Studies show e-mediation is just as effective as traditional face-to-face techniques. And even better, people often say that the physical distance makes the whole thing way lower stress. Believe it or not, that lower stress actually helps foster trust and positive emotions much faster than sitting across a tense table from someone you're angry with. Finally, Section 6, how to choose the ideal model. It is time to match your conflict to the method. We have covered so much ground today, from traditional to digital, from facilitative to evaluative. Let's bring this all together. Do you need someone to look at the legal merits and give you a hard, expert opinion? You want evaluative. Is saving a long-term relationship the absolute most important thing? Go with transformative. Dealing with intense anger or someone across the country? E-mediation is for sure your best bet. And if you absolutely positively must leave with a guaranteed decision today, you're going to want those hybrid models like MedArb or ARB-Med. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Which resolution model actually reflects your personal style when facing a conflict? Are you the type who wants to sit down and collaboratively explore underlying interests, or do you just want a hard, fast legal evaluation? Understanding this isn't just about legal strategy, it's really about knowing yourself and how you handle adversity. Think deeply about that before your next dispute pops up. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I really hope this guide empowers you to navigate your next conflict with absolute confidence.